Murphy at Murtech.com with your daily news update. Okay, here we are, December the 9th in the year of our Lord 2025. And as usual, I got a lot of great information for you, so let's go ahead and click over here to Murtech on Rumble. This is my Rumble channel. This is the video we're watching tonight, episode 1771. Let's go ahead and get into that. Let me pause this, close out the live chat for the moment. Slide down here and click the Show More button to expand out the description box. We have information from Adogg, Devory Darkins, Bongino Report, and Dr. Steve Turley. But before we get into that, let me give some shout outs here to Anita Martino, just started following my channel. 3 Trap just started following my channel. Freet Wob 1 just started following my channel. Wise Wealth just started following my channel. And Undercover Voter just started following my channel. So thank you very much, folks, for following my channel. I greatly appreciate that. I hope you're tuned in, and I hope you enjoy the content. Alrighty. Debbie BS reposted my episode 1770 from last night. Scurry16, Viper Senior, and Susan080 commented on my episode 1770 from last night. Debbie BS commented on my extra 551A. Cotton Ball 31 and Debbie BS commented on my extra 551B, and Debbie BS commented on my extra 551C. So thank you folks for your comments and reposting my video. I certainly appreciate that, and I enjoy reading your feedback. So thanks again. Here we go. Boom. Thumbs up. Thumbs up. Okay, if you could give me a thumbs up right here, right below the video that you're watching right now, if you could scroll down and click that thumbs up button, that would be marvelous. Okay, Adogg, deported? I don't know. Ilhan Omar suffers seizure after she just accidentally admitted to stealing $250 million. Okay, well, let's check that out and see what that's all about.
Y'all just freaking hypocrites. This is what I showed y'all right here about Tim Walsh. It say over 480 Minnesota Department of Human Services employees accused Governor Tim Walsh of ignoring early fraud warnings and retaliating against whistleblowers, linking him directly to schemes defrauding the state of millions through fake companies billing for undelivered social services. The allegations tie into the Feeding Our Future scandal of a $250 million COVID-era fraud case, which involves Ilhan Omar, and that's how she got her net worth inflated to over $30 million. That's why she's in trouble now. She's panicking. With over...
Okay, and that's something, you know, I've heard this $30 million thing thrown around a lot. And the thing of it is, you would think, because I checked into this, and yeah, Congress people, men and women, congressmen, have to pay taxes on their income, including their salaries that they're in Congress. They pay taxes just like everybody else. And they're only allowed to earn 15% more outside revenue, like for book deals and things like that, which would account to their salaries like $174,000 is the baseline salary. So another 15% on book royalties and giving speeches and shit like that, it would be $26,000. So how in the world can Ilhan Omar accumulate $30 million in the last 4 or 5 years? That's like $12 to $15 million a year. How does that happen? Okay. You would think, number one, she would be breaking some kind of rule or regulation in Congress if you're only allowed to earn 15% more, $26,000 approximately. And number two, I wonder how much taxes she actually paid on that. That's an interesting thing. I'm wondering if there's any way we can find out about that. I'll check into it, and if I can find out, I'll let you know. But at any rate, let's get back to the real.
50 convictions primarily involving Minnesota and Somalia community, and reports of funds potentially reaching Somalia-based groups like Al-Shabaab, though uncharged. Walz acknowledges the fraud impact on public trust, emphasizes prosecution regardless of the background, and welcomes a federal investigation, while critics like President Trump highlighted amid immigration policy and the outlets caution against broad community blame. And that's the thing, Tim Walz didn't acknowledge anything, because if nobody said nothing about it, this fraud will still be going on. Now that he didn't got caught, he acting like he care about it. Oh, we got to do something about this. But yet 3 years ago, his own employees, over 480 employees in Minnesota, told him about it, and he told them to shut up and keep quiet. It's like they must think we stupid or something. So I definitely want to show that out there. But let's get to Ilhan finna be deported Omar. So, say breaking, Ilhan Omar throws a tantrum because her Somali community is finally facing real scrutiny after stealing over $1 billion in taxpayer cash through massive fraud schemes. Deport all of them, including her. So we get right here by Paul. He said, Representative Ilhan Omar admits she took donations from Somalis who were part of the $1 billion Medicaid fraud scheme in Minnesota. She claims she sent the money back a couple of years ago and asked that the Somali fraud get looked into. Ilhan thinks you're dumb enough to believe her. Yeah, and that's how she enriched herself, because we seen her people on camera pretty much saying, you know, that they glad that she's in power where she's at because she's been sending money back over there. And now that she done got caught, that's the reason why she's trying to do damage control. But check this out.
I want to pick up on where the Treasury Secretary just left off. He alleged that people who were tied to you or your campaign were involved in this broad, brazen scheme to rip off the Minnesota state welfare system. Do you want to respond to that? Do you know what he is referring to?
I really don't, and I don't think the secretary himself understands.
Oh,
what he's
yes, you do.
referring to.
You know what he's talking
we
about.
We obviously had people who were able to donate to our campaign that were involved. We sent that money back a couple years ago.
You ain't something up. Do she really think that we believe that? Oh, it was people that were involved and they sent the money back years ago. Why haven't we heard about that? This woman, look at her face right now. Can you look at Ilhan Omar and look how she's looking? She ain't even looking at Margaret Brennan. She's looking. She knows she's lying. She ain't sent nothing back. She sent it to somebody, and that's where it's been, and they've been sending to Al-Shabaab. Like, she must think we stupid. Like, you can see her face that she's lying.
Who were able to donate to our campaign that were involved. We sent that money back a couple years ago. And actually, I was one of the first members of Congress to send a letter to the Secretary of Ag asking them to look into what I thought was a reprehensible fraud that was occurring within the program.
This woman is a complete liar. And she think that we're going to sit up there and believe it. Look at this face right here. You think we're going to sit up here and believe this? She think that we're going to believe that she said some years ago. Where's the proof? Where's the proof of that? That money was sent back.
I think all this will be investigated very thoroughly because there's really a national spotlight on Minnesota and all its problems. I mean, this is a scandal that is by far the biggest in state history.
Meantime, the immigration roundup Metro Surge conducted by ICE in Minneapolis has taken some 15 people off the street. DHS says they are illegal. 5 of them are Somali. Meantime, the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, has issued an executive order making off-limits city property like parking garages to the federal agents to use as rally points before they conduct some of these operations here in the city. Sandra, back to you.
Mike Tobin, live out of Minneapolis on that for us. Thank you. John.
Sandra, let's bring in Trey Gowdy, host of Sunday Night in America. Trey, great to see you this afternoon. So we should point out that Omar has not been directly linked to any of this, but a lot of questions being raised about how much she might have known or suspected what was going on, because she does know a lot of the people who were involved in this. We just put this together here. She introduced legislation that led to the $250 million being defrauded.
And that's just education. Let's take a look at the welfare state. What are illegal immigrants? What do all of these millions and tens of millions of people do to our welfare system? Well, we know the answer. We've showed you this. We showed you this starting in October. How about welfare? Whether or not it's any welfare, cash, food, Medicaid, housing. There you go. All different forms of welfare. Orange represents households headed by an illegal immigrant. Look at this: 59, 18, 48, 39% of households headed by illegal immigrants taking those welfare programs. And I mentioned the numbers. It's staggering. Foreign-born population in the United States right now is the highest since 1890.
Then they say that whistleblowers now confirm Ilhan Omar's campaign funneled a massive amount of money to her husband's firm, while Somali-linked networks in Minneapolis ran one of the biggest COVID relief fraud schemes in history. Hundreds of millions stolen.
Well, now investigators are tracking the web of fraud to other Minnesota Democrats, such as Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. Many of the suspects linked to the scheme live in her district, including a restaurant owner who hosted events for her. He has since been convicted of stealing $12 million in COVID funds.
Wow. That's the same place she was acting like, she was fixing food and stuff at. She was part of the scheme as well. Like I said before, that's the reason why her net worth is up more than $30 million right now. And then not only that, when she went on Face the Nation on CBS, she also, attacked Stephen Miller, pretty much calling him a Nazi. This is what I've been talking about. This is what the Democrats been doing. They call President Trump a fascist. They call him Hitler. They call him Mussolini. They call him, say somebody he's a Nazi. They do this all the time. So it say Ilhan Omar ended her anti-American interview on CBS by falsely saying Stephen Miller is a Nazi and that Somalis are like Jewish, Irish, and Italian immigrants who came to America and helped build it. Everything that comes out of Ilhan's mouth is vile and is an insult to the American people. And that's her point. She has no respect for America and constantly lies to cover up for the crimes that she or some of her people have committed. Stephen Miller is right when he says that many Somalis aren't assimilating as foreigners. You either respect the culture and laws of the country you're visiting or you will be legally removed. It's time to legally remove Ilhan Omar from the United States of America.
I want to ask you about something else that the architect of the president's immigration policy, Stephen Miller, said. On Thanksgiving Day, he posted, "No magic transformation occurs when failed states cross borders. At scale, migrants and their descendants recreate the conditions and terrors of their broken homelands." What do you make of this argument of failure to assimilate and sort of ruining America? How do you understand this?
I mean, when I think about Stephen Miller and his white supremacist rhetoric, it reminds me of the way the Nazis described Jewish people in Germany.
Oh my God, this is crazy.
As we know, there have been many immigrants who've tried to come to the United States who've turned back. One of them being Jewish immigrants. We know the way that people were described who were coming from Ireland. Irish immigrants. We know the way in which people were described back then when they were Italian immigrants. And to me, we're yes, of course, ethnically Somali. We are in this country as Americans.
Yeah.
We are citizens. We are productive part of this nation, and we will continue.
This is just absolutely insane, man. Absolutely insane.
Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there. But it's amazing, and that's something that, is a good question. Now, I don't know, maybe her husband made it. But still, I would think making $12 to $15 million a year over the past 4 or 5 years, there would have to be some taxes to be paid on that. I would like to find out. I don't know if you can contact anybody in the IRS and ask that question without, taking a chance of being audited yourself or even opening your mouth. But at any rate, this video does come from Adogg. I am subscribed to his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, let's jump back here and see what Devory Darkins has to say. Democrat mayor dealt major setback after second train stabbing leaves one hospitalized. It's the same thing, folks, throughout the country. All the Democrat cities, Democrat states, they just let these criminals out on the street to hurt more law-abiding citizens. The people that are supposed to vote for them. And they continue to vote for them for some reason I don't understand. why they continue to vote these Democrats in. Maybe it's the Somalis. Oh, wait a minute. They don't vote. That's a good one. Okay, here we go.
An awful thing that happened during Friday's rush hour. DHS identifying the suspect as a twice deported illegal immigrant. Investigators say he forced his way onto the train while drunk. He started a fight with a passenger and then stabbed that passenger with a large knife. That victim is hospitalized and in stable condition.
So if this sounds familiar, you are not wrong, because the same thing happened a few months ago in the same city on a train. An attacker stabbing a young woman to death on that commuter train in Charlotte. The suspect identified as a mental patient with more than a dozen prior arrests there.
President Trump reacting on Truth Social. He says another stabbing by an illegal migrant in Charlotte, North Carolina. What's going on in Charlotte? Democrats are destroying it like everything else, piece by piece. Jonathan Seri live from Charlotte this morning. Hi, Jonathan.
Good morning, Data. Oscar Solorzano is scheduled to appear before the judge at 10 a.m. Eastern time. Authorities say he is an illegal immigrant from Honduras who was deported during the Trump administration in 2018 and deported again during the Biden administration in 2021, only to return both times. He has a prior conviction for robbery and prior arrests on multiple charges, including aggravated battery. Now, this is the second time in less than 4 months that a repeat offender has been accused of stabbing someone on Charlotte's light rail commuter transit system. Back in August, a U.S. citizen with a long criminal rap sheet was accused of fatally stabbing Irina Zarutska, a Ukrainian refugee. So after this second attack on Friday, many transit passengers are on edge.
This is the question that I cannot find an answer for. It violates all common sense, and it continues to be a pattern when they arrest people. So, obviously, you guys see what his name is, Oscar. There, here's a photo of his of him being after he was arrested, his mugshot. Okay, and I want to scroll down here, and I just want to show you this. You guys see what his race is being identified as? And so, my thing for people screaming about what the president is doing here is very simple. So, why wouldn't the police arrest this guy and then hand them over to ICE? What is the reasoning for not doing so? They can't tell you this, by the way. They can't give me an answer on why that is. What they'll do is deflect every single time. All right, so why don't we go to this? This is one clip right after the person was stabbed. Someone got a video of the EMS taking the victim out of the train there.
Oh my God.
All right. And then here's what one person had to say.
Oh my God. My husband missed that train by, one stop and didn't get on there. And that's crazy. We should not have to feel like we are one stroke of bad luck away from being the next victim.
Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy posted on social media, apparently the death of Irina Zarutska wasn't enough. What is it going to take for the Charlotte mayor to remove violent criminals off the streets and protect her constituents? The time to act is now. Mayor Vi Lyles, a Democrat, says the city has invested heavily in increasing security on the transit system, and the police department is increasing its presence in high pedestrian traffic areas during the holidays. However, the mayor says there are several aspects of public safety that are outside of the city's jurisdiction, including immigration policy and enforcement. And Dana, ICE has lodged an arrest detainer to keep Solorzano behind bars, but Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says there is no guarantee that local authorities will honor it.
So one, they haven't honored it. Two, we have another Democrat mayor. Three, let me show you the picture of her just so you guys understand what's going on here. And this is continuing to be, I'm not into the race stuff, guys, but we have to understand. Okay, Los Angeles, Karen Bass. Chicago, Brandon Johnson. New York City was Eric Adams. Charlotte, V. Lyles. New Orleans, Baltimore, Memphis. Do you guys want to know what they all have in common? Just asking. I'm just asking questions here. Do you guys want to know what they all have in common? You see, what kills me, if we want to play the race card, what kills me as a black guy in this country is that when black people get into leadership positions, particularly in these cities that have been plagued with crime, they have done nothing to save black people. In fact, they've only made it worse. And I think this is a great time to get into the left's response, particularly Democrats. And I was just talking about mayors, right? So here's the new mayor of New York City, or I guess he's still mayor-elect, Mondani, and him giving instructions to illegal immigrants on how to evade ICE, because this represents their response to it all.
Last weekend, ICE attempted to raid Canal Street and detain our immigrant neighbors. As mayor, I'll protect the rights of every single New Yorker, and that includes the more than 3 million immigrants who call this city their home. But we can all stand up to ICE if you know your rights. If you encounter ICE, these are the things that every New Yorker should know. First, ICE cannot enter into private spaces like your home, school, or a private area of your workplace without a judicial warrant signed by a judge. That looks like this. If ICE does not have a judicial warrant signed by a judge, you have the right to say, "I do not consent to entry," and the right to keep your door closed. Sometimes ICE will show you paperwork that looks like this and tell you that they have the right to arrest you. That is false. ICE is legally allowed to lie to you, but you have the right to remain silent. If you're being detained, you may always ask, "Am I free to go?" repeatedly until they answer you. You are legally allowed to film ICE as long as you do not interfere with an arrest. It is important to remain calm during any interaction with ICE or law enforcement. Do not impede their investigation, resist arrest, or run. One last thing. New Yorkers have a constitutional right to protest, and when I'm mayor, we will protect that right. New York will always welcome immigrants, and I will fight each and every day to protect, support, and celebrate our immigrant brothers and sisters.
I was about to give him a little credit there, because towards the end he said, don't impede, don't obstruct, don't run, but you have a right to protest. Now, the average person on the street who's protesting, they believe running, obstructing, impeding, putting their hands on police vehicles or even ICE agents is protesting. Okay? Did you guys see what happened in New Orleans? The ACLU tried to sue the state over free speech violations, meaning they thought stopping ICE vehicles, even putting their hands on a vehicle, is their First Amendment right. This is the problem with Democrats overall, and this entire movement that has shifted. I mean, they used to be kind of moderate here. Now they've turned into radicals because they're changing the language of the law in their own minds. Okay, so I guess with that freedom, it has led some Democrats to take it to the next level. Now what they want to do is set up a committee here, and this is going live tomorrow, where it's all about focusing on the American citizens who have been detained by ICE agents or Border Patrol agents, okay? And here is the guy leading it, none other than Ryan Garcia from California.
Tomorrow, you're going to be leading a public forum in combination with Senator Richard Blumenthal to hear from American citizens who have been caught up in enforcement actions by this administration. This is, we're seeing more disturbing reports like this. The Miami Herald capturing a moment a woman in Florida was forcibly removed from her car on the way to work. DHS claims she was detained after failing to follow orders, but listen to her calling for help. Here to say, I'm a U.S. citizen. Please help me. How does an incident like this fit into the stories you might hear tomorrow? Is there a through line?
We know of over 170 U.S. citizens that have been detained by ICE, many of whom have spent days in detention without any ability to call their family or access to a lawyer. Now, we know in this country that due process is something that both U.S. citizens and non-citizens have. That's clear. Now, ICE ignores that. But to go after United States citizens because of the color of their skin or because an ICE agent might think they are undocumented is outrageous. No one now is safe in this country because of Donald Trump and what he's done to law enforcement agencies like ICE and DHS. I've talked to numerous U.S. citizens who were detained for days. I talked to a veteran just a few weeks ago, served our country in Iraq, was detained. He did nothing wrong, no criminal record. He was detained for days, missed his daughter's own birthday, has never been given an explanation.
A U.S. citizen?
A U.S. citizen and veteran of the United States.
All right. So I have a question for the homeowners out there, and this is pretty serious. What if you could delay your next 2 mortgage payments? I'm talking about putting that money back into your pocket while we head into the holidays. Well, you could do that if you
he's
call.
going into a commercial now, so I'm going to go ahead and move on. But this is crazy stuff. I don't know whether to believe these people or not. I mean, I don't know. Oh, this is the only time that I've heard that. I wanted you to hear it, but if you've heard more of this, I just don't know. All right, this video is from Devory Darkins. I am subscribed to his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back here. And here we go. Slide down here and see what Bongino Report has to say. Democrat squad runs cover for Somali fraudsters. Imagine that. Let's check it out.
So the Treasury Department said that it is going to investigate those missing tax dollars from Minnesota's public assistance programs. They all started during the COVID-19 pandemic, and all of these taxpayer dollars were supposed to feed children during the pandemic. Democrats were shutting down businesses, shutting down schools. People were, scrounging for money. They couldn't go to work, couldn't go to school, all this stuff, right? So these government programs, they turned out to not actually benefit the public, and they were benefiting, Somalian immigrants. And this was happening in Minnesota, right under Governor Tampon Tim, all under his nose. And we know this now. But now the Treasury Department is investigating how this money got from point A to point B and what happened when it got there. So where did this go, right? These Somali immigrants, turns out this money could have been making its way all the way to an Al-Qaeda affiliate, Al-Shabaab, in Somalia. So here is Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. He was on Face the Nation, and this is what he had to say about this stolen money. Watch.
That money has gone overseas, and we are tracking that both to the Middle East and to Somalia to see what the uses of that have been.
Okay, but you have no evidence of that money being used to fuel terrorism at this point, which is what some conservative writers are alleging.
That's why it's an investigation. We started it last week. We'll see where it goes. But I can tell you that, it's terrible. Representative Omar tried to downplay it, said, it was very, it was very tough to know how this money should be used. Yeah. She was gaslighting the American people.
Well, we'll talk to her.
Yeah, but when you come to this country, you got to learn which side of the road to drive on. You got to learn to stop at stop signs, and you got to learn not to defraud the American people.
Right. Not defrauding the American people is apparently a really tall order for these Somalians. And Scott Bessent was saying that, Omar is gaslighting the American people. She also joined Face the Nation, and this is what she had to say. She's not blaming the fraudsters necessarily, but she is blaming the FBI. Watch this.
The head of Medicare and Medicaid say they're going to have a new policy that applies to Minnesota. You heard the Treasury Secretary say they're investigating. But there's another thread here because House Republicans and the Treasury Secretary just now talked about a link to terrorism. A possible link. He said they're just now beginning to look into it. How confident are you that that's a false claim?
I'm pretty confident at the moment because there are people who have been prosecuted and who have been sentenced. If there was a linkage in that the money that they had stolen going to terrorism, then that is a failure of the FBI and our court system in not figuring that out and basically charging them with these charges.
But they are.
And so I do know that for many years, this sort of alarm that there is money being transferred through the airport in bags and going to terrorism that accusation has always existed. There's never been here and there in those accusations. But if that is the case, if money from U.S. tax dollars is being sent to help with terrorism in Somalia, we want to know.
Yeah.
And we want those people prosecuted. And we want to make sure that that doesn't ever happen again.
Okay, well, we can agree on that last part. If there is American tax dollars going to fund Somalian terrorism, we do want to know that. So I guess we agree on that front. But earlier in the clip, you know, she's blaming this on, she's saying that it's an FBI failure that this fraud was even able to occur. And she's saying that, like, these people need to be charged. Well, they are being charged. So I guess law enforcement is doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. But, you know, she's trying to blame law enforcement for preventing this from happening. Again, she's trying to take the blame off of the Somalians. And the FBI, I was reading a CBS article earlier about how even during the Biden administration, federal prosecutors in Minnesota were filing charges on this. So they have been on this case. It's not like they were letting this go. I mean, clearly they identified that this was a problem. It was ongoing. And this is kind of coming to light more now, but they've been on the case. And again, it is not the fault of law enforcement. It is the fault of the fraudsters. But again, this is an opportunity for Ilhan Omar to place the blame on anyone but the Somali immigrants. Here she is discussing Stephen Miller's argument that assimilation is key. Watch.
I want to ask you about something else that the architect of the president's immigration policy, Stephen Miller, said. On Thanksgiving Day, he posted, "No magic transformation occurs when failed states cross borders. At scale, migrants and their descendants recreate the conditions and terrors of their broken homelands." What do you make of this argument of failure to assimilate and sort of ruining America? How do you understand this?
I mean, when I think about Stephen Miller and his white supremacist rhetoric, it reminds me, yes, it reminds me of the way the Nazis described Jewish people in Germany. And, you know, as we know, there have been many immigrants who've tried to come to the United States who've turned back, one of them being Jewish immigrants. We know the way that people were described who were coming from Ireland, Irish immigrants. We know the way in which people were described back then when they were Italian immigrants. And to me, you know, we're yes, of course, ethnically Somali. We are in this country as Americans.
Yeah.
We are citizens. We are productive part of this nation, and we will continue to be.
I'm really tired of the Nazi thing. I'm really tired of it. Especially, it seems like Stephen Miller is the left's new favorite boogeyman. They are obsessed with calling him a white supremacist. They are obsessed with calling him a Nazi because he's part of Trump's administration. And if Trump is Hitler, then therefore everyone who works for him is a Nazi. That's just like their logic. And Stephen Miller is Jewish. So again, they're just attaching this label to anyone and anything, and it makes no sense. But calling someone a Nazi, it's like their new hyperfixation vocal stim. They're just like obsessed with calling everyone a Nazi, whether it's true or not. And being pro-immigration plus assimilation doesn't make you a Nazi. It makes you a sane human being. Asking immigrants to come here legally and then be productive members of an American society is not racist. But liberals think that the criticism of Somalis who defrauded our system, not just Somalis in general, Somalis who defrauded our system and stole $1 billion in American payer dollars, and then sent it overseas. That criticism, liberals think is unjust, and it is impacting the Somalian community so much so that now liberals who are in 24/7 protest mode, they are in they're just like, how can I virtue signal next? So now liberals are showing up to Somalian restaurants. We already showed you, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, like choking down Somalian food just for the photo op. So now liberals are showing up to Somalian restaurants. They're eating the food to show support. Watch this.
Something beautiful happened in our community today. It started with an invitation for a few friends to join me for lunch to support our Somali community, support our businesses, and write a few notes of encouragement. But people just kept coming in the door. Friends had invited friends, and before we knew it, the restaurant was filled from front to back. Hundreds of notes were written and delivered to all of our local businesses today. We love you, Wilmer. Thank you for your support.
Just like really great. No, she does not sound excited. She sounds depressed, and the vocal fry is grating. Just really, really grating. So yeah, she does this video and she is saying how excited she is to see all this support. But now we know that the money is not going back into the community. So you're not even really supporting local. You're supporting Somalia, which I think liberals would probably be okay with. But I just looked up some of the stats on where the money that Somalian immigrants goes and how much of it actually is. Like, here's the numbers. In 2023 alone, Somalis abroad, so not just in the United States, but Somalis who don't live in Somalia, they sent home $1.7 billion. $1.7 billion. That is more than the Somali government's budget and the $1.1 billion in funding that Somalia receives from international aid. So again, they are going to the United States, they're going wherever else, they're making money, and they're putting it into the pockets of their family members who live in Somalia. And this isn't just Somalian immigrants, this is a lot of immigrants do this. But this notion that they're coming here for a better life, they're coming here to, integrate into our society, and they're proud Americans, it's just not really reality. We're seeing that these people do have an allegiance to their home countries, which I can understand. I mean, you live somewhere your whole life, you leave. I mean, obviously you have a tie, you probably have family there, friends there, whatever, I get it. But they don't just cut ties in that they come here, they build a life here, they're growing their communities here. Their first priority is growing their communities back home and making money for people back home. They're not really becoming productive members of American society in the way that Ilhan Omar is trying to sell to people on whatever network that was, whatever Sunday show she was on. But I was joking about, Jacob Frey, the Minneapolis mayor, choking down the whatever Somalian slop that he was eating, just like as a photo op. And then I saw this meme on X and it just cracked me up. Because someone said, like, we already know that Ben & Jerry's, which is totally woke, they're going to come up with some way to virtue signal to the Somali community or whatever. And then someone replied with this meme, and it's Ben & Jerry's, and it's called Somali Surprise. That's the new flavor. And it's not even really ice cream that's coming out of the container. I'm not really sure what it is, but it looks like, I don't know, like brown brains or something. I don't know.
Old coffee.
Old coffee? Why would coffee look like that?
Well, that's my best guess. You
It
got
kind of
another
looks
guess?
like dry brownies, like really, really dry, overcooked brownies a little bit. But anyway, Jacob Frey is on the he's on the container, and it's just the screenshot of him from that video choking down the food. It's so good. It's so good. Anyway, but now it is obviously the left's mission to use this Somali fraud scheme story as a way to paint Republicans as racist, which they do all the time. But this video of Vice President Vance is resurfaced where he's talking about Americans wanting to understand their neighbors. So watch this.
Who's out of the house is actually evicted from the house because there are people who are going to pay more for rent. And then what happens is 20 people move into a 3-bedroom house. 20 people from a totally different culture, totally different ways of interacting. Again, we can respect their dignity while also being angry at the Biden administration for letting that situation happen and recognizing that their next door neighbors are going to say, well, wait a second, what is going on here? I don't know these people. They don't speak the same language that I do. And because there are 20 in the house next door, it's a little bit rowdier than it was when there was just a family of 4, a family of 5. It is totally reasonable and acceptable for American citizens to look at their next door neighbors and say, I want to live next to people who I have something in common with. I don't want to live next to 4 families of strangers.
So leftists were saying, oh, this just proves that Republicans are racist because, J.D. Vance only wants people in America to speak English and whatever, which that is the language that the majority of America speaks. Obviously, you can speak whatever you want, but, I don't travel abroad and expect everyone to speak English, although they do. But I wouldn't expect people who live in another country to be able to communicate with me. If I were to move there, that would be on me to learn the language of that country. But people reverse that. They come here and then they expect all of us to just bend the knee and, let them, live their lives and speak whatever language and not attempt to try to be American. So J.D. Vance took to X and was clarifying, saying, it's not that I don't think that people should not speak English. This is dishonest because it's reasonable to want to share a language with your neighbor. And then he said on X, how do you borrow a cup of sugar? Resolve disagreements. Have a nice conversation. You need a common language, and in America, that language is English. The far left became so deranged on immigration that they're attacking people for want to be able to speak to their neighbors. And again, this is not racist. The left calls it racist. That doesn't make it so. And it's not even just the far left. It is rhinos too. So here is Republican Utah Senator John Curtis saying that it should be our priority to make immigrants feel welcome here. Watch.
I think all of us need to wake up every morning, look in the mirror and say, what are we doing? What am I doing specifically today to make this country a better country, to make all of our immigrants feel more welcome? That's what we've always had. And I think if more of us would do that, it would matter less what individuals said.
Right. But as you know, he's not just an individual. He's the president of the United States, calling an entire community garbage.
Yes, he is. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and move on. I'm 20 minutes into this 1 hour and 2 minute video from Bongino Report with Haley here. She's kind of taken over this while Dan Bongino is working for the FBI with Kash Patel. But let me go ahead and click on the Rumble link here.
So not just
show you that this video does come from Bongino Report. I'm following the channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Great information. I just wanted to give you a little different perspective on Ilhan. Okay? And here again, I would certainly like to know where that $30 million in her net worth came from. Okay, let's jump back here and see what Dr. Steve Turley has to say. This just changed everything about the midterms. Sounds interesting.
Changing everything we thought we knew about the 2026 midterms. For months, the legacy media has been feeding you a steady diet of Democrat victories or polls showing massive leads, analysts predicting a blue wave, news anchors confidently declaring that Republicans are finished heading into 2026. But something just happened, something huge, something that's about to send shockwaves through every Democrat campaign office in America, and it's only about to get worse. Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot professor, enjoying yet another wonderful day in President Trump's golden age that you made possible back on November the 5th. So if you want a front row seat on how you continue to change the world in ways you never even imagined, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. RMG Research, one of the most accurate pollsters from 2024, just released their latest generic congressional ballot. It's an absolute bombshell. Republicans are up 4 points over the Democrats. It's Republicans 45, Democrats 41. When you add in independents who lean toward one party or the other, the margin holds. Republicans 48, Democrats 44. Now, this isn't some random outlier. This is the same polling outlet, RMJ, that nailed 2024 while so many other pollsters were flat out wrong. I mean, these are the very same pollsters who are desperately trying to convince us right now that the Democrats are shoo-ins for the midterms. But like 2024, it's simply not happening. Take a look at the latest Harvard-Harris poll for Trump. He's 5 points higher than he was last month, almost at 50%. He's at 48. Always remember, presidential approval is a key predictive indicator for the midterms. Presidents with approval ratings down in the low 40s and below, which is very common for a second year of an administration, they tend to lose upwards of 30-plus seats in the midterms, while presidents with approval ratings around the 50% mark, while they still may lose, they lose by a lot less. What's happening here with this latest from RMG, and the reason why it's such a bombshell in terms of the generic approval or who you're going to be voting for, is that it's showing that the Republicans have a clear path to hold the House in 2026. And that's because it's indicative, or it's representative of, two R's that I want you to remember: redistricting and registration. Redistricting and registration. So this RMG poll seems to be indicative of the congressional redistricting wars that are happening and the voter registration trends, both of which overwhelmingly favor the Republicans going into 2026. It's really very, very impressive, and it goes way beyond just the polling. So let's break it all down here. Let's start with the redistricting wars. So right now as we speak, we've got Texas with 5 new GOP seats. We've got North Carolina with 1, Missouri with 1. Indiana just passed a new congressional map through the state house that gives us 2 new seats. Ohio is looking at a pickup of 2 new seats. Florida just formed a special redistricting committee to add 3 to 5 new Republican seats before the midterms. So you add all those up. We'll go with 4 with Florida. We'll meet in the middle. You add all those up and you get 13 new solid red seats. Right now, the Cook Political Report, which looks at the competitiveness of each House seat, right now with Texas, Missouri, and North Carolina redistricting included, as well as California's 5 Democrat seats from Prop 50, that's giving the GOP a solid 213 seats going into the midterms right now as we speak. That means they only need to pick up 5 to hold the majority for 218. If we count the 4 seats from Florida, the 2 from Indiana, and the 2 from Ohio, that's 8. 8 solid red seats. That gives the GOP 221, which is 1 more than they have right now. So in effect, if this map holds, Republicans will have won the House before a single vote is cast and without flipping a single contested seat. Now, the Democrats are increasingly getting desperate here. Virginia Democrats announced plans to redraw their maps to pick up 4 more Democrat seats. Virginia would be down to just 1 Republican representative, if you can believe that. I think that's going to have its own political repercussions. But were that to happen, if they do get 4 more seats, that'll knock us back to 217, 1 seat shy of the majority. But you should know that's very hard for Virginia Democrats to do. Virginia's redistricting requires passing the legislature twice, then winning a statewide referendum all before the 2026 midterms start, which is literally in just a few months. So campaigns need to start months in advance. They need to raise money and all that. And if you don't have the districts redrawn by early in the year, it's too late. And again, even if Democrats successfully counter gerrymandered in California and Virginia, they'd offset Republicans from the majority by just 1 seat. Republicans would be down to 217. So all they'd have to do is win 1 of the 19 or so contested seats across the country, and it's over. They got the House back. And that's where the second R comes in. This is where the voter registration trends smack the Democrats right in the face, especially given that voter registration trends are one of the most accurate predictive indicators for election outcomes. And when you see these numbers, you understand precisely why the Democrats are so panicked. There's a 2 emergence to the fuzz, having gacket hours for revealing the seat in the age in 2020. Good friend says the online seating is limited. So click the link below and be sure to register, and let's thrive together in the golden age today. Our good friend Seth Keshel, one of the most accurate election forecasters out there, who's absolutely spot on. We're talking county by county in 2024. He's been watching the voter registration trends very carefully. That's what he bases his forecasting on, voter registration. And he's noted that in the 30 states that track voter registration by party, the Democrats are hemorrhaging voters at an alarming rate. They've been hemorrhaging voters since 2020, but it just continues. For example, in the Keystone State of Pennsylvania, my backyard here, there's been a lot of concern of late in that it looked like the Democrats were regaining the lead in voter registrations over the last few months. But Seth points out that a very deep investigation into the 67 counties suggests that the change was due more to registration maintenance over the November election some weeks back, not because there was any significant voter registration surge among the Democrats. So, in fact, it's quite the opposite. Philadelphia and Allegheny counties got redder, as did the key bellwether counties of Erie and Northampton. In other words, he who wins Erie and Northampton wins Pennsylvania. The two counties are almost perfect microcosms of the state as a whole, and both counties are going solid red. Get this. This will blow your mind. Since November of 2024, since Cackles Kamala lost Pennsylvania a year ago, the Democrats have lost over 40% of their voter registration advantage. Let that hit you. Over 40%. And Pennsylvania always votes to the right of their voter registration. So if their voter registration advantage for Democrats is, say, 4%, they tend to vote 3 or 4, 5 points to the right of that. Well, now they're going solid red. At this point, the Democrats will never win Pennsylvania again in a presidential contest. Without Pennsylvania, the Democrats are permanently locked out of executive power. They just simply can't win the 270 that they need without the Keystone State. Perhaps most impressively, the state of North Carolina. They're just ahead of Pennsylvania. Looks like they are poised to flip this year. The Republicans are just under 2,000 voter registrations away from flipping the state. It is absolutely unbelievable. North Carolina, like Florida before it, North Carolina has never, ever been majority Republican. They vote majority Republican, but that's because of a very large crossover among old school Democrats in North Carolina who simply never formally switched their party registration. Well, that's happening now by virtue of all these new voter registrations who are all registering Republican. We could keep going and going. In Arizona, both parties have been purging inactive voter rolls and active voters, I guess I should say, from their rolls since November. But Democrats are losing significantly more, and Republicans continue to widen their vote registration lead there in Arizona. They're literally hemorrhaging voters in these voter roll purges. We saw something similar in Colorado. Yes, deep blue Colorado. Republicans just saw a net gain of 6,000 voter registrations. In Florida, perhaps most dramatically, Florida added 5,000 more Republicans to their registration, while at the same time they dropped 5,000 Democrats in their voter registration with a net gain of 10 freaking thousand for the GOP. Now, that said, there are lots of variables when it comes to the midterms and congressional races that you don't necessarily see in presidential races. So you can have different turnouts in different districts. You have, the candidate quality can differ significantly across the board. The amount of money that's poured into some races over other races. There are a whole host of factors that impact non-presidential races and can certainly override these trends. And so there's absolutely no room whatsoever for complacency in the least. That said, the redistricting and registration trajectories are giving the GOP a huge advantage for the midterms that they normally wouldn't have. And if the RMG polling is accurate, that advantage is already showing itself before single vote gets cast. It's our job to make sure that when those votes do get cast, 2026 will be a political earthquake from which the Democrats will never recover.
Still haven't tried 1775 coffee? Now's your shot. The 1775 starter kit just dropped, only 1,000 units. You're getting the bold dark roast that hits hard, the smooth medium roast, and the Vitality Mushroom Coffee for clean energy and laser focus, no crash.
All single origin, small batch, toxin-free, and mold-free. Plus you're also getting a gold spoon clip because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. A frother strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's opinions. And a black 1775 tumbler.
$170 worth of coffee and gear. Yours for $99. This is for the ones who've been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble, wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler, it is.
Go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something, just like Rumble does.
Okay, thank you folks for spending your time with me. I'm sorry my microphone was screwed up there, but we have some great information that I want to share with you tonight on my daily news wrap-up. Please come back at 9:30. Give me time to set this up. I've got some great information from Viva Fry and Glenn Beck and Wendy Bell Radio. Thank you for spending your time with me this evening. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later, and may God bless.